You are listening to Come As You Are, the podcast. My name is Amanda, and I'm joined by my two friends, Stephanie and Tyler. We are a trio of coaches on a mission to ignite a collective movement where authenticity, self-discovery, and purposeful living take center stage. Each episode, we go live in the Kaya way. Kaya is an open invitation to show up authentically and vulnerably. It's a safe space to allow ourselves to be worthy and enough now. It's a celebration of our individuality and diversity. So, welcome to the show. We're happy that you're here, and we invite you to join us in today's conversation.
Hey, friends.
Hello.
Hello.
Yes.
So good to be here. I feel like we say this every week, but
Every week.
it truly is. I'm like, really.
It's really such an anchor at this point for the start of the week. I was thinking about that this morning as I was driving to the gym. I was like, I know I'm starting a new week because it's like I wake up, I go to the gym, and then I come here and I do this podcast, and that's just how I kick off every week now. And it feels so grounded and so like anchoring. Yeah, it's good.
Yeah, definitely so good. I think I don't know, maybe I'm biased. I don't know. Like, it's the best way to start the week.
It is. We can be a little biased. It's our show, right?
Right?
You know? Right.
It's like checking in every week, right? Is this still the greatest thing? Yes, it is.
That's exactly what it
Always
is.
the same conclusion. Yes, we're still wonderful, and it's still a beautiful space. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'm reading a new book right now that I just started this weekend, and in the book they were talking about how like self-actualization is being like really present.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel that every time we come to this show and we go live and we just are here together, like I just feel this collective like presence that is so powerful and so honest. I'm always amazed by how real we get in this space and how, I don't know, just here we are. You know what I mean? Like it really is so, there's like an active presence when we all come together in this space, and that's really cool. Like and rare. And I think that's the point that I wanted to make was like we forget how rare it is that we can just show up and be super present and not think about like, oh, what do we have to do next? And where, because in this space, when we go live and we're here, I'm just here. And it's really one of the most like meditative parts of my entire week is this podcast.
Yeah, and I think how special it is to really be intentional, or to, yeah, maybe it isn't I'm trying to think, I'm like, is that what I'm trying to say? Yeah, I think intentional is the word, right? It's like, that we surround ourselves with those types of experiences, or even those types of people, that allow us to show up and have that presence, and really just come as you are. Like, just show up as you are. You don't need to do anything special. You don't need to put on a mask. You don't need to show up any differently than, well, maybe today feels like, not the greatest of days, and that's okay too. Like, that's welcome. And the joy and like everything is welcome. And I do think that is, I mean, I don't know, because we've created this space, and I have like other places and spaces where I've created this for myself, that I'm not sure, I feel like this is rare for me, but I think in general for most people that it would be fair to say that this is a rarity.
Mm-hmm.
It's very like we can make that happen all the time, right? To be present to whatever moment we are in. And then when you go to a retreat or you do yoga or whatever, the purpose there is to be present. So there's exercises and that help you. And then you think, wow, this feels so great. And like, why am I not doing this 24/7? And then we go about our lives and then we just stop doing it. Fascinating, isn't it?
It's also very like fascinating because we've all experienced this, the retreat hangover.
Oh, yes.
Where you come from a retreat like that, where you're like hyperactive, hyper present, like just in it. And then you get out of it and you're like, oh, you know, downloading and, you know, things like that. And I mean, I think it comes back to balance, but like in our everyday lives, like how mindlessly do we go about our daily tasks, you know, just in kind of autopilot, just, you know, and I've been on my own kind of personal journey of presence and becoming more and more aware of how actively present I am in moments. And this has been, like we say every time, a very long journey. Like, you know, you don't just go from like no presence to actively present all the time. You're just every day you have a new opportunity to move the needle a little bit more, you know, and it's like 1% more present each day. And maybe not even 1%, maybe it's like 0.1%, but like, you know, like it doesn't even, that might even be too big for some people, but you know, it's that power that we have as people to make the commitment and the choice to say, I want to show up and I want to be fully present today. And what does that look like for me? Because as I've grown, I have gotten more and more present in life. And I'm telling you, like, it's so much nicer to be actively present than just passively there, you know? Cool.
Then let's take this into the real life. What have you guys been up to this weekend where you were like really present to something?
Well, I'm really present to the fact that my house is a disaster. I'm in the thick of like a major reno project. So like everything is everywhere. And as I become more and more present to that, I'm like, I need to declutter. I need to reorganize. I need to, you know, move things around and try and find some organization in the chaos of what is right now. So I think for me, that's what it is. It's, you know, that suddenly I was just like looking around. I'm like, oh my goodness, it is a disaster.
Can I just say, like, my presence experience this weekend has been the entire opposite of what because that was like the most beautiful moment from my weekend was taking a walk with my dog. And we were in this beautiful meadow and it was like full of poppies and there was some corn and then there was rape, and so it was yellow and it was of course super green and red, and so I stopped there. And it was also really, really windy. And I don't know what it is with my dog, but she gets like photo model next level when it's windy. I don't know what it is with her. I mean, she actually likes when I take pictures of her. Like, this is thankfully something I've trained her to really enjoy. And because for some dogs, they just hate that, but she loves it. And so like we had the most amazing session. Like, it was really great to just see her there in the fields and then filming her and taking some pictures. It was so wonderful. And I really did stop and just kind of sat down and just took the scenery in, and I couldn't believe, like, all around me it was like poppies, poppies, poppies. It was so, so, so beautiful. And I thought, wow, I'm so like filthy rich in beauty, in nature, that all of this is around me. So yeah, totally different experience with all the space and all the beauty. So I had to like really laugh when you just shared, Amanda, of like, oh, this is really the opposite.
Definitely the opposite. But, like, oh, it sounds amazing. I'm like imagining like your dog just like the wind in her fur, like that.
It is
Like,
exactly like that. I'm gonna share a picture. I can't put it up on the screen here, but maybe you guys can see through my phone. Wait, I'm gonna see. Okay, first I'm gonna show you my adorable dog.
Oh, she is adorable.
Gosh, she's so cute.
Isn't
For anyone who's just listening, you have to come and see the video because that dog is so cute.
Yeah, come watch the video.
Wait, and then let me find one from the meadow. It was just like, it looked like kilometer after kilometer. It wasn't that much, but it was phenomenal. There we go.
Oh my gosh,
wow.
It doesn't even look real.
Right?
It that looks like a Van Gogh painting. Like, it could be like something that Van Gogh would have painted back in the day.
Yes.
Yeah.
Again,
And then
those listeners, another beautiful opportunity to come and watch the video. Oh my gosh, totally worth it. We promise.
and I'm gonna show you one more, because my dog, like, she has floppy ears, right?
Yep.
So usually they're kind of just like on the side, like here.
Mm-hmm.
But because it was so windy, this is like the funniest picture I've ever taken of my dog. Look.
Oh.
It doesn't even look like the same dog.
No.
They are like so up. And that was from the wind. It was so cute. That was so adorable. Yeah, so I had like the best walk ever yesterday. It was so cool.
Oh, sounds amazing.
That does sound
looks amazing.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Yeah.
We're going there again tonight with some friends to enjoy it some more. Yeah.
Yeah, so good.
It's already so hot in Texas that things are dead already. Like, our wildflowers are like gone. It's like, oh
wow.
Heat
They're
is
burnt
here.
to a crisp.
welcome to summer. And it was disgustingly hot here this weekend. It was like hot and humid because we've been having like very severe weather. And anyway, that's not what made me super present this weekend. Although very aware of the weather, because every time you walked outside, it was like suffocatingly like
smacks you in the
steam
face.
In your face. Yeah. Yeah, it was that kind of weather. Let's see. I had a very transformative weekend. I don't like that word. Restorative.
Why don't you like the word transformative?
I don't know. It feels cliche. Like,
but that's what it was.
It was. Okay.
Well, then don't be stingy. Okay, go ahead.
It was transformative. Last week, overall, I do a thing where I turtle, and turtling for me is like coming in and like going deep into my thoughts and having like existential crises and all of the great things that come with that. And so last week I was just really in a reflective mindset mode where I was just taking in the gravity, the magnitude of all of the change that has happened in my life in the last like 17 months. And I had a moment at the gym where I saw myself in the mirror and like didn't even recognize my reflection. And of course, ugly tears and all of this great stuff that comes from that. But, there was just a part of me that had this kind of awakening moment where I was like, I am not the same person that I was 2 years ago. And almost this like mourning moment of having to learn to let go of that old identity and then step powerfully into the present. Again, we're actually beautiful that we came here, because that's really what was happening, was like, it was a release of the old self, and then a very step forward and step into the present self and recognize like, oh, this is who I am now, you know? And all of this stuff that I've been feeling recently, the confidence, the conviction, the clarity, like, this is not imposter syndrome. This is not coming from a place of like arrogance or cockiness or, you know, anything like this. This is just coming from a planted place of confidence, and knowing that for 17 months I've been showing up every single day and doing the work. And like, I had to like let myself be proud of that. And that was very interesting, to sit with my pride and sit with the accomplishments and give myself the praise, because it's very uncomfortable. It was very uncomfortable to praise myself over the weekend. And that's what I did, was a lot of like reflection, letting go, and celebrating how far I've come, and really acknowledging and honoring that journey. Very uncomfortable for Tyler, but also super transformative, if we're going to go with the cliche word.
And I don't think you're alone in that. I think we do get this message that, you know, sitting in pride or that like confidence is like cocky, you know? And I think there is a line. There is a line where confidence, like, you know, does become being cocky and just full of yourself, and, you know, that type of energy. But I don't think that's what you're talking about, right? And yeah, we do. I don't know. At least I did growing up, like this message of like, almost like not. It's not even about like talking about yourself. It's like, you know, bragging, you know, that like by celebrating our accomplishments verbally or with others, it's like you're bragging, or you're, you know, trying to make yourself better than someone else. And I've grown in a different direction, that, you know, I really have embraced this. No, I'm going to celebrate my accomplishments because I'm really proud of them. And it's really important for me to acknowledge those things, because it anchors in the transformation, right? And it reminds me of the work that I've put in, and because it hasn't been easy, the journey to get there. And so if I'm really sitting with myself and celebrating those things in the journey, celebrating the in-between, I just think that that's so incredibly valuable. And I don't know about you guys, but that was, and I think maybe that's kind of like what you're kind of sharing too, Tyler, this like, we're not allowed to brag about, you know, the things that we've accomplished, or even be super proud. And it's one thing to be proud, and it's another thing to be like putting others down because of your pride. That's two totally different things, right? Like, I'm not saying I'm better than you because I've accomplished all this. I'm just happy with myself, and I'm proud of myself for what I have accomplished. And there's a difference.
Yeah, it reminds me a bit of like the scarcity concept, that just because you have accomplished something, that this must automatically mean that someone else can't. So that there's only like so much room at the top. But really what we're talking about here is kind of cleaning up your own garden, you know, ripping out some plants that are not working for you, like the plant of always putting yourself down, for example. And then you have room to seed something that is celebrating yourself, honoring your accomplishments, which can then, you know, give you so much more energy to do the things you really want to do. And just because you change something in your own little garden of traits and magic doesn't mean that this will affect anyone else's.
Yeah.
Mm.
And it doesn't mean necessarily to affect someone else's, I think, what we're talking about in a negative way. Because there's so much positive, right? Like, I think even like looking at those who have come before us, like role models and those, you know, people that we look up to, if they didn't do what they did, right? Like they're that example for us to be like, oh, I want to do that. Like, or even just giving others permission to do it, you know, right? Like, especially if you're taking a path that isn't super like traditional or like quote unquote like normal, but to see others who are sort of forging that path or on that journey with you, or maybe a few steps ahead on that journey, it's actually helpful. You're actually like helping to plant seeds in someone else's garden. Oh gosh, here we go with another metaphor.
Yeah, and I think
let's beat this one to death too.
No, I love this. I'm so on board with metaphors.
Yeah,
I
me
think
too.
So the way I see this is that you are the gardener of your own garden. No one else can garden in your garden. But they can, of course, influence your decisions, which plants you're gonna water, which plants you're not gonna water, which ones you want to rip out. And so I think that's especially this piece you just mentioned, Amanda, with, you know, other people inspiring us, that helps us to take action and take the right tool and do the right thing with the right plant to help us, you know, have a garden that is according to what we believe in. But I wouldn't say that someone else can just go into my garden and do something. I think they just giving me permission, for example, or I don't know, installing fear in me that I won't plant something, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's very interesting. Very interesting when you get to this like garden analogy here, where, and when you think about it, like, how much time have we spent in other people's gardens looking at what they have, wanting what they have, you know? And this whole energy of like the comparison game, and this like, oh, the neighbor's garden is more fruitful than mine, or, you know, whatever. And instead of going and working on your own stuff, you just stand there envious of the person next to you. And when you do that, you're giving up all of your power. You know, it is the most disempowering thing to be envious of someone else. You know? And like, and I had that kind of moment this morning in the gym, actually, where I had a celebration moment where I was like, God, I really have come a long way, because I was bench pressing and I had a personal best this morning, and I was like feeling it, and I was like, yeah, like max out Monday, like I'm strong. And then I looked to the person to the left of me or to the right of me, and they were benching like 2 times as much as I was. And I could have looked at that person and went into this very negative space and been like, well, Tyler, you know, you're not even close to being there yet, you know? And so why are you celebrating this when there's still all of this to do? I made a different choice this morning. I looked at them and I was like, damn, that's impressive. And then I looked back at myself and I said, but hey, I'm really proud of what you did this morning. I'm really proud of your push this morning, because you did it. You know, you maxed out, you PR'd. And I was just like, it was honestly like the first time in the gym that I kind of broke that envy, you know, that like, oh, you look at the person next to you and they're lifting more or running faster or whatever. And it's so like easy to slip into that mindset, especially in a place like a gym where there's so many people and all of this. But like, you have to remember, you're not competing with the person next to you.
Yeah.
You're competing with the version that you were yesterday, you know? And it's all that inner, it's that inner work, you know, it's that inner self that you're, you know, having to, and I don't even know if it's like, I don't even know if I like the word compete, but it's that inner self that you are progressing. That's a better word, you know? But it's so hard. It is so hard when we get into this space of envy and coveting what our neighbors have and being like, I don't have that. Like, first of all, stop and ask yourself, do you really want that? You know? Because there's so many times that I've looked at somebody and I'm like, I don't have that. And then I think about it and I'm like, I really don't want that. Like, I don't want that specifically, like, you know, a kid or a house or, you know, things like that. Like, and I'm just like, I'm very happy with where I am in my own life right now. And it's very, I think, challenging for us to acknowledge that, especially when we are constantly being sold more. You know?
Yeah. And it reminds me too that like it's called a PB for a reason, right? Like it's a personal best. Like it's a personal thing. It's not about like, oh, I did better than the next person. It's a very personal thing. And I think that it's important to remind ourselves of this because it is so easy to get caught up, especially in the world of social media and all those things, like to fall into that comparison trap and, oh, well, I don't have this and I don't have that. And for me, whenever I'm like noticing this, because this is also human nature, right? We can't judge ourselves for this. This is just how we're wired. And for me, it's, well, if I'm meant to have that, or I was meant to have that, I will have that when it's the right time for me, you know? And sometimes even when I reflect back on things where I'm like, oh, I wanted that and it didn't happen. And then I realized later, well, if that had happened, then that wouldn't have happened. That was even better than that, you know? But in the moment, it was like, oh, I really wanted that. I'm so disappointed that I didn't get that, you know? Like, whatever that is. But I don't know. I'm sure you guys have probably had this experience too. I was seeing head nods, so I'm guessing yes. And yeah, I don't know. It's not always easy, though. It's not always easy to remind yourself of like, okay, well, what's meant for you can't be taken away. And if it didn't happen, there's something else that's better on the horizon.
Yeah, I think this can be with smaller things as well as bigger things.
Yeah.
Something that I always like to use as a classical example for this is jobs. You know, you apply to like 18 places and some of them don't even write you back and you stalk them for weeks, nothing happens. And then others come back to you in 2 days. And then you begin this tedious process of going to interviews and writing emails and doing assessments and whatnot. And then you think sometimes, wow, I'm like the perfect person for this job and everything went so well. And we had so much chemistry and then you don't get it. And then you wonder, what the heck? And then there's that, you know, that little voice that you can call upon and say, yep, that was just not meant to be because there's something even better coming. And then sometimes the lesson just doesn't come. Even when you get the other job, you're just like, hey, why? But then maybe 2 or 3 years later, it's like, that was why.
Yeah. It's hard sometimes to sit with the waiting for the lesson, though.
Oh, yeah. That's, I would say, one of the very hard things in life. to not even understand why. Yeah.
Yeah, because there is, right? Like we know that there is, and sometimes I find myself I have to stop myself because I'm almost like looking for like what is the lesson? What is the lesson? I'm like just right now, maybe you're not meant to know the lesson yet. Just let it be, let it simmer, let it. And then, like you're saying, like a couple years later, I'm like, oh, that's there it is. But I just want to know, and I think this is like the, I don't know, personal development trap. I don't know what you would call this, but when you're so in this space, like when you're such a coach, that you fall into that like wanting to. I don't know if you guys have like the same experience, but for me, that's what it is. I'm like, well, I know there's a lesson here. And so sometimes I just, going back to where we started, and like, sometimes you just need to be present with that moment and allow it to be what it is, not like constantly searching and being like, oh, well, why is this happening for me? Like, and doing that switch of like, oh, well, life isn't happening to you, it's happening for you. So right now it feels like it's happening to me, but I want it to happen for me. So I'm searching for that lesson of, why is this happening for me? And I can't always find it right away. And I find this so challenging.
Amanda, you just spoke perfectly to a larger point of like instant gratification.
Ooh, yes.
And I mean, for some, instant gratification is like, I'm going to go buy the item and have it right then and there. And now for coaches, we want to know the answer. Yeah. We're like, we know there's supposed to be something here, so just tell me, like, please. But it's so funny because it's that instant gratification of, I want it now. I want it now. And I think the deeper that I get into all of this work, the more I start to realize that, like, it's less about the destination and it's less about achieving and more about the process of becoming. More about the who do I get to become when I'm on this journey, and the gifts that go into that, every single day, just waking up and being like, okay, what is today going to bring me? And how do I choose to show up today? And like, there's so much in this life that we cannot control. And there's so much in this world that will never make sense to us. And it's like, I don't know, does it actually matter if we ever reach the goal? Or does it actually ever matter if we, get to the milestone? Because once you get there, there's just another one waiting for you. Because we're never happy, when we set those like, and again, it's like a slippery slope, because obviously you have to have some things that you're working towards, and because that fuels the journey. But if you're only obsessed on hitting the target, getting to the destination, you miss the whole fucking point, And so many people are so unhappy because they haven't achieved the next level. But what we don't realize is there's like an infinite number of levels, and there's an infinite, like you're never going to get to that place leveling up where you're like, I finally made it, I finally, no. And I'm experiencing this right now in this moment where, I look at the mirror and I see the physical transformation and I go, damn, I look good. And then there's that part of me that's like, okay, but now I want to go here, you know? Now it's no longer about the weight loss. Now it's about the strength and the muscle, you know?
Mhm.
And so there's always going to be a next level. There's always going to be something like once you hit the goal, there's going to be another goal that comes right after it. And if we are only focused on the achievement, on the arrival, we're missing out on the whole fucking point of life.
So how do you guys like remind yourself of that in the moment? Like, how do you stay present to the journey?
Good question.
Good question. Yes. Well, I have like certain like affirmations that I remind myself of. One of them is piece by piece. And it's just a constant reminder of like, we take this piece by piece. And, you know, we're human. So we're not going to be perfectly present all the time. It's just like, that's impossible.
Yeah.
We're not deities. You know what I mean? Like, we're not these enlightened beings, you know? That's the part of being human. But I think I constantly have to remind myself that of the journey so far. So I do a lot of my process is on reflecting and looking back and going, okay, let's see the path that you just walked and all of the points there. And for me, I think what has happened in this last week is I've been reflecting a lot for many, many years, but I've never allowed myself to fully appreciate the reflection, you know? And I think that's what was changing in the last week is like, I have a deeper appreciation for the reflection and the journey and going, damn, that really is a lot, you know? And allowing that magnitude to sit with me, you know, and just feel the weight of the journey so far. And then also looking forward and saying, okay, but where do I still want to go? And so it's this like, it's for me, it's finding that balance of acknowledging, celebrating, deeply appreciating the journey so far, and then also having that forward mindset of, okay, but where do I still want to go? You know, and making sure that the goals that I'm setting and the milestones that I want to achieve are actually coming from me and not from external forces. So that's been another big change throughout all of this is, you know, a lot of my milestones were very influenced by others in the past. And now my milestones are influenced by things that I actually want out of life. And so it's like you have to have a practice of reflection and then almost like visualization. And that has to be very intentional. And then it's coming back to the present and being like, okay, where am I today? What do I have to do today to get me to where I want to go tomorrow? That's what I've been doing. And so far it's been working out pretty well, I think.
Oh my God. Definitely a process.
Yeah. Yeah.
And sometimes, you know, I feel like what's working now shifts and changes depending on like the season of life, really, and what we're in, right? Like there's certain things that I've done in the past where I'm like, oh, that was, you know, really helped me in my journey. and now they've been replaced by other things, and then sometimes they show up again later on. But there really is like this ever-changing, I don't know necessarily if cycle is the right word, but it's just ever-changing process, I guess, or awareness, maybe. I'm not sure how the best way to describe that, but it can shift and change.
For me, it's actually very simple. It's just accepting what is. I find that is the best catalyzer for anything. Just being in full acceptance of the situation that I'm in. And for me, a big piece why that is so hard is the time piece. Thinking that things should be finished faster, or should go faster, or reaching goals sooner. So, but accepting where I'm at, in any kind of situation, that's a huge game changer for me. That's helping me a lot. And then also, this helps so much to fine tune the path, because when you accept where you are at, you are very vividly and, to be honest, like brutally aware of how your past, your decisions in the past have shaped where you are at today. And then I'm very inclined to make decisions that will give me a different outcome tomorrow if I'm not happy with certain parts. If that, like, in my head, that makes a lot of sense, but I don't know if I could articulate it really well here. So it's this, like, it makes no sense to be fully in acceptance of the situation you are in and then still make decisions that are not gonna make you happy and fulfilled and joyful. So that's the answer from me.
Yeah, that makes total sense. I'm right there with you. And that brutal awareness that you talk about, sometimes like something will happen, and then like the connection I'm making on, like this is just a pattern that's being repeated, and I can also see like even generationally, like where these patterns have come from. And while this is like, I mean, I could totally geek out on this stuff, and it's fun and it's exciting and it's interesting, but it can sometimes be exhausting. Like, I feel like sometimes I'm like, noticing this, like, the results that I'm getting, like you were describing, Stephanie, like aren't really serving me, or they don't really feel like they're in alignment, or I'm not happy with them, as you said, right? That, like, well, where does this come from? Why am I choosing these things? Why am I acting this way? And knowing sort of where it comes from, and maybe that I'm like healing or being a pattern interrupter is helpful, but it's also can be exhausting because you're constantly like hyper aware. And I think that it's important, at least for me, I've really been reminding myself that sometimes we need to not be super like aware, because it's too exhausting. Like sometimes you just need to like let it go, Like, do you ever get like that, like I don't know what the, like, some kind of like personal development fatigue, or like I don't know what it's called, like, but that exhaustion that comes from like constantly like looking at things and having that awareness of like, oh well, why do I do this? Where does this come from? Like what patterns from the past have brought me to this point, and where there's definitely value in that. I do think that there's like that there is such thing as too much. Right? And as a coach, I'm like, how dare I? Like, there's no such thing as too much personal development.
No, like,
there's like, you need, a break, or you need like a pause or time in between, even for the integration, or to like allow things to settle. If that's like making sense. Again, it's like, you know, those things that make sense in your head, and now it just feels like I'm saying a whole lot of words. So I hope that makes sense to you guys.
That makes total sense. And I think it's actually part of personal development that maybe doesn't seem so interesting when you just sit around and let things integrate. But it's a super important part. Like, you cannot go on, like, imagine going on like 10 retreats in a row. It's like not possible, because your emotional and your mental selves, they need to catch up, you know. They just don't work on the same timeline as your physical self. So they need more space, they need more room, they need more whatever to integrate everything. And so I think that's what you were speaking to, that we don't have to do this inquiry and like, oh, why is this happening right now? What has led to this? If we are in a phase of integration, we don't, you know, we can always choose what phase we're in, or figuring out what phase we're in, and then do what's best for us. And again, that's also, you know, just being aware of of ourselves.
The integration part is the very unsexy part of development. But it's like, also, Stephanie, you said you can't go to 10 retreats in a row. I'm like, challenge accepted. Watch me. Watch me.
And then watch the like after burnout that like you're just so like
follow me as I go to 10 retreats in 10 weeks, you know.
Oh my God.
And then 10 weeks or 10 months of like just being slowed down and
laying flat on the floor in the, you know, just being like, you know, I think that actually kind of comes back to what Stephanie was saying about timelines, and like, we want things to go faster. We want to speed up. We want, again, instant gratification. We want it now. You know, I think of Veruca Salt and Willy Wonka in the Chocolate Factory, where she's like, I want it now. And I'm like, yeah, we all do. We all want it now. You know, if we could wave a magic wand and finally have, you know, the big bank account and whatever your definition of the perfect body is, and career and, you know, all of this, if we could just magically bibbity boppity boo that shit, again, then what's the point? You know, like, what's the point if we could just magically make it happen? Because there really is joy in the journey. And I know that's so cliche to talk about, but like, we totally forget how beautiful the transformation is, and the integration, and these moments of reflections, and, you know, the learning and the downloading that happens when we choose to work on ourselves. And there is no, at the end of the day, there's no perfect timeline. There's no perfect progress. There's, you know what I mean? Like, and once we learn to let go, once we learn to, you know, stop the comparisons and just be present with ourselves, we get to a place of peace, you know? And maybe that's what I kind of experienced last week, when I finally kind of got to this place of like peace, of like, oh, I'm okay. Like, I'm good. Like, I'm in a really healthy, beautiful space right now, and I don't care anymore what my neighbor's doing. You know, I only want to focus in on my garden now. And oof, that just gave me like that instant, like, I want to cry moment. Because I've spent so much of my time focusing on others and again trying to compete with the person next to me. And I was losing that race because that wasn't my race. That was their race. That was their journey. That was their garden that they were growing.
Mm-hmm.
And I had neglected my own garden. I had neglected me. And I realized for the last 17 months that has flipped. And for 17 months, I've been doing the gardening within myself. And then last week was that the awareness finally catching up with the action. And that's a big point here that we just, that we've kind of that we've talked about, where you need that integration. You need that moment of, ooh, you might take action and you might start something and then your awareness catches up, or vice versa. Like you might have some awareness and you might keep getting the awareness and keep getting the awareness over and over again. And then eventually it's like, okay, now the action's going to kick in, but like, I think we're constantly competing between like awareness and action. And, sometimes we're in action mode and we're doing, and we're out there creating and conquering. And then it's like, oh, the awareness has to catch up to be like, oh yeah, that's what you just did. Oh, cool. Or vice versa. Mm-hmm. And that's that like rockiness of transformation. And that's why the timeline is always going to be longer than we expected. And I've come to accept that, even though I don't like it. Again, like any human, I would love to have a now, but I'm also very okay with my journey is going to take however long it needs to take. But I'm not going to stop. I'm not going to give up. I'm not going to settle just because this is taking a hell of a lot longer than I anticipated.
Yeah, let that one land. And just something that you said there, Tyler, that really stood out to me. It was, what if the goal wasn't the big bank account, the quote unquote perfect body? Like, what if it wasn't all of those things? And what if it was to have peace? What if that was the goal, right? To just be authentic, or to find peace instead of all of these other external things.
I think once you get a taste of what that means or how that feels like to have a goal like this, it's very easy to get addicted to more, and then also let go of the more tangible, visible goals that we might set. I just want to share from own experience that if you would have said something like this to me many, many years ago, I would have not understood what that meant. Yeah. Definitely not. And also wouldn't have cared. I still would have wanted my body goals, my money goals, whatever. But again, once you get a taste of that, then it's very easy to be hooked on it and say, "Ooh, yeah, why don't I make this like more of a spiritual goal, or a how am I feeling goal, or do I have all my values represented in all the different areas of my life?" That becomes very sexy once you know how it works. Yeah.
Okay, Tyler's gonna burst.
I'm gonna burst because. And I'm just going to drop this here, and then we're ending this episode with the big drop. It's like what Stephanie just articulated, and what this whole conversation I think has come to, is the distinction between outer and inner. The outer, like the outer world is materialistic. It is like I want the bigger bank account. I want the car, the house, the this, the that. all of these materialistic things that at the end of the day, at the end of your life, when you are on your deathbed, none of that matters. The real richness comes from the inner wealth that we create when we find peace, harmony, fulfillment, love, all of these fluffy words that we just love, that we just want to like savor in. That doesn't come from the outer material experiences and stuff. It comes from being at peace with who you are right now in the present.
So maybe as a reflection today, instead of like sharing what we thought was maybe valuable or like a great aha from the episode, so we maybe all mention one of these goals that we have from the inside out, something maybe from the past or a goal that we have right now. Are you up for the challenge?
I'm like thinking, I'm like, okay, what? Do you guys have anything coming up?
No, I would come up with it as I talk. I also need a minute to think about it.
Yeah, that's definitely a thinker.
I thought about it. It's so good, but
because here's my initial, when you asked me this question, I was like, my initial thought to this was like, I don't know if I've ever formally articulated the inner, because I think part of the inner wisdom is just innate. It's there. Like it doesn't necessarily need to be vocalized. It doesn't need to be written down. Like exterior goals, those are very quantifiable. Those are very, just linear. I think these inner goals that you were just talking about, Stephanie, it's not very tangible. It's not very concrete. It's very abstract in energy. And my initial thought was like, what comes up for me is that, every day, like for the rest of my life, if I just wake up and choose presence. And that has been one of my biggest goals for many, many months now, if not years. I've been working on just becoming actively more present in the moment. That's it. That was my initial gut to that.
What I have as a goal for years already, and I'm gonna have again, like you, probably for the rest of my life, is to feel alive. And for me, that means, that's just the word I use to describe this. Again, you were really right, Tyler, that this is very abstract sometimes, and it's difficult to describe really. But I think we can absolutely try. We're up for it. And for me, being alive is kind of the antidote to what I felt for so many years when I was in this like diet culture, body shaming, toxic cocktail situation in my life, where I would wait for life to start tomorrow once I had the perfect body. And that for me always, when I look back on it, is like having this black and white filter over my whole life. Nothing is as vivid. Nothing feels as lively. And so for me now, it's sorry, I'm giving you all the feels. For me, it's being alive means to fully embody myself and be just really, really happy in the body that I have, taking care of my body, loving myself. And so that's being alive for me. That was close to home, I'm guessing.
It was. Yeah. I'll save it for post, like, because you just hit something that I'll share once we're off. Yeah.
Amanda, did you come up with something?
Well, as you both were sharing, I'm like, again, I think it is this. I think that's why it's because it is that like it has that abstractness to it that Tyler was describing. So it does seem like, yeah, how do we put this into words? And what came to me was this like full expression of the soul, the full expression of like that soul's purpose and why I'm even here. And continuing, because I'm definitely like feel like I'm in alignment with that, and so continuing to be in alignment with that and just trusting the process and allowing or letting go truly of that, the timing of things or the timeline, and allowing that divine timing to guide me. I feel like that, to me, in this moment right now, if I really had to like sum it up in a nutshell, that's what I would say.
Oh, that's so beautiful. I love this. Sign me up for that too.
Y'all, I think we're gonna look back at this episode one day and go, holy crap.
Yeah.
Like, what did we just tap into? And again, you know, just to bring this full circle, and I don't know if we said this in the episode or if this was something we talked about before the show, but we had talked about today, this morning, all of the self-help books, all of the personal development advice, it all comes back to basically the same principle, just worded 85 million different ways. But and you know, and I wrote, I had shared like, this is not difficult, but it's the hardest thing you'll do. You know, it's not difficult, but it is the hardest thing that you will do.
Yeah, as in it's not complicated.
Yeah, it's not complicated.
It's just really hard. Yeah.
It's just really hard, you know. But I love it and I'm addicted to it and I can't get enough. So
I think it's one of those like positive addictions, right? Like,
yeah. Exactly.
There's just two in this world, positive addictions. One, personal development, and the other one is not getting enough of our podcast. So
exactly. That's it. Yeah. Yep.
So that was a little braggy. Let's end with that.
Hey, we can be a little cocky. We're good at what we do.
Yeah, let's do that. Right on topic today.
Yep.
Alrighty. So thank you everyone for listening. If you are listening, go to the video and watch the cute pictures I shared of my dog, because she's just adorable. If you're not taking anything away from this episode, but go watch the dog picture. All right.
Definitely worth it. We can vouch for it.
Yeah. Thank you so much. We will see you next time.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to Come As You Are, the podcast. You can follow the show on Instagram at Kaya the Podcast and on YouTube and Facebook by searching Kaya the Podcast. If you haven't already done so, please help us keep the conversation going by subscribing, rating, reviewing, and sharing this podcast. And be sure to join us next time for another deep conversation.